The story of the Christmas Truce starts on a glorious summer's day in 1914. We're in a Warwickshire village. Everybody's having fun. There's a fantastic vicar who gives a rousing speech reminding us that this is Shakespeare's county. The men are playing cricket, and as they hit the first ball, war is declared. And then we follow the fortunes of a group of young men and women who've signed up to serve their country in a war that they think is going to be short, in a war in which they might be heroes, and a war in which they're sure they're going to be victorious. Our three main characters are Stanley Liggins, a young man who's not very good at anything. He's been a milkman's assistant, but he's got the sack, and he's not a very good soldier. Phoebe, who's a very competent and rather brilliant nurse, who's very excited to be going to serve in the army. And Bruce Bairnsfather, who's a second lieutenant in the British Army, but he's going to go on to become a very famous illustrator of life in the trenches. But Bruce is going to lead these men, and so we follow their journey through their training, across the Channel to Belgium, to Plug Street Wood, where the men are going to be based. We see them building trenches and getting used to trench life, which is pretty awful. And they see some action, they see some shooting from the German side, and they retaliate. And there are some things that are quite difficult to get used to and a little bit distressing. So Bruce has a brilliant idea, which is to organise a concert party, which is essentially a series of sketches and songs, and it's just a great big party. So they do that, and we have a lot of fun. And just as we're thinking, actually, they're feeling quite good about being there, they get orders to go over the top. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Phoebe has been a little bit naughty and has put Christmas decorations up all over the ward to cheer the men up, and she's in terrible trouble with Matron. So they have a kind of war of their own, and eventually they have to find a way to call a truce. Back at the trenches, the officers on Christmas morning decide that they ought to call a ceasefire for 2 days to allow the men to celebrate Christmas. And they ask each other a very serious thing, which is permission to bury the dead who've been killed in the battle. And together they do that. So it's a very moving moment in the story. But after that, to cheer themselves up, they suggest that they might play a game of football. And the German soldiers and the British soldiers play football together in no man's land on Christmas afternoon. And then the British officers realise that the truce has to end and that the war has to go on. But we know that the men and women who were at the front in 1914 in December will never forget this amazing Christmas, a Christmas full of peace and hope.